Hi everyone. Today I'm finally doing another personal finance video. It's been a while and I know that many of you have been asking for these kinds of videos, so I thought I would jam pack today's video with lots of financial research and information that I've dug up. Now, this is mostly going to be about the state of the US economy, so it will resonate with my American viewers. But for those of you who are outside of the US, this may also be interesting because I think that trends tend to have ripple effects across the world. A little bit about me if you are new to my channel or if you're a little bit confused as to why on this luxury and fashion channel I am talking about personal finance. It is because I have always swung between little luxuries and really practical, frugal financial practices, meaning that I believe that if you work hard, you can also play hard. I believe that life is meant to be enjoyed, and if that means treating yourself to little things here and there and adding a little extra joy and sparkle to your life, then that's a great thing to be able to do. At the same time, I believe wholeheartedly that financial savviness and making wise choices and living below your means and paying off debt and all of that is so healthy for your peace of mind and to secure your financial future. So it's a delicate balance, but I've always tried to find the middle ground here. So hopefully it's not feeling ironic or contradictory to be on this channel where I usually do handbag and fashion reviews, but also love to talk about mindfulness and personal finance. All right, so I'm going to rattle off a bunch of statistics that I discovered in my research. First, we're going to talk about credit card debt because that's a big one, right? So you probably know already, but in America, credit card debt is rising rapidly while savings rates are declining. So that is not a good combination, obviously. I saw a headline recently that said 36% of Americans have more credit card debt than emergency savings. And that just made me sigh, not out of judgment, but out of concern for my fellow Americans. Right now, the average credit card debt is $8,674. That is an increase from 2023 and a significant increase from pre-pandemic averages. So it is just this steady climb in the wrong direction. I'm sure most of you already know that credit card interest rates are rising. The average credit card interest rate right now is 22.76%, which is insanity. Nowhere can you park your money safely with no risk in an account and earn anywhere close to 22.76%. So if you don't pay off your credit card debt in full every month, you are digging a hole, right? Digging a hole. Now, credit cards are great for people who can pay off debt in full every month, take advantage of points and perks and all kinds of benefits. It's also much easier to track your expenses with credit cards. So I'm a big fan of credit cards if you can manage those balances. Now, credit card companies are reporting record high profits. Why? Because more people are using their credit cards and the credit card companies are collecting more interest. At the same time, credit card delinquencies are rising. So banks are reporting record losses due to credit card delinquencies. And when banks start to suffer, bank failure is a possibility, and then there's a whole another ripple effect throughout the economy. Right now, banks like JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they're reporting that they are offloading billions and billions of dollars worth of bad debt, which is credit card debt, that consumers or Americans are not able to pay off. Credit card delinquency rates have hit about 10.9%, which is the highest level in 12 years. Just to give you some context there. And then FICO recently came out and reported that credit card scores across the board are falling for the first time in a decade. So these are all negative trend lines. And this is not about the doom and gloom. This is not so that you panic. This is to be educated and to be aware of what is happening and what your fellow Americans may be struggling with. Now, behind this credit card debt is something else that's happening. When you think about earnings, paycheck, income, the average household income in America has dropped by almost 10% since 2020, so in the past 4 years. The price of consumer goods have been rising at least 2 times faster than wages. More than a third of Americans have reported having second jobs or side hustles. So that means 1 in 3 Americans, that's kind of a lot, isn't it? 1 in 3 Americans now have side hustles. Another study conducted by Bankrate stated that 31% of Americans believe they will always need more than one source of income to stay afloat. So let's just go back to the side hustle thing, because I think that there's probably more to the story. I think more people are finding creative ways to make additional income on the side, not necessarily because they're stretched, but because they can, because they have the flexibility working from home, they can juggle more jobs. So there's probably more factors involved, but it is interesting because what I found was that the number of Americans having side hustles is 2 times higher compared to 2017, just 7 years ago. And while I applaud that, because you got to do what you got to do to put food on the table and take care of yourself and your family, I think that when you have to find a second or third job or start a side hustle because purely you need more money, that may put people in a state of desperation and anxiety, and that's not really a great place to be in, right? So, emergency withdrawals from 401k accounts, which are the company sponsored retirement accounts, right? Emergency withdrawals are surging. They're going through the roof. The number of people taking money out of their 401ks prematurely before hitting retirement age has increased by 36%, 36% year over year. Okay, 36% is huge. It's not a 10% increase. It's not even a 20% increase. It's nearly a 40% increase in the number of Americans taking money out of their 401ks. And the majority of people are citing housing as their reason for withdrawing from their 401k. So a lot of people are trying to avoid foreclosure on their primary home or eviction if they are renting. Now, I encourage you all to do your own research and look up your own sources. All of the information that I'm sharing in this video is sort of like an accumulation of different headlines and reports and news publications that I have been reading. Now, let's talk about housing a little bit more specifically. The average mortgage payment for an American has increased by, can you guess, 96% over the last 4 years, according to Zillow. And the average home price has increased to $501,000 as of Q2 of 2024. So this is very recent data. So the average home in America is $500,000, more than $500,000. Now for me, I live in New York City in Manhattan. That wouldn't even get you like a little studio apartment. So it depends on where you live, what market you're in, if it's a hot market where real estate is very expensive or a more affordable market. But any which way you slice it, $500,000 is $500,000. It's a lot of money. All right, then let's talk about food. So food costs have risen by nearly 30% in the past 5 years. Okay, and this is all according to the US Department of Agriculture, so it's coming from a legitimate source. So nearly 30% increase in the price of food that you put on your family's table. That is a lot, especially considering what I just shared about the lagging wages. And this is a sad reality that food insecurity is rising among Americans. 12.8% struggle to afford food. That's over 2% increase from last year. So again, negative trend line. And America has the highest rate of people under stress for food compared to the other developed countries like Canada, the UK, Italy, France, Japan, Germany. I mean, that is a sad reality. Then let's talk about energy, utilities. I've noticed personally that my energy bills have gone up considerably over the last few years, even in the last few months. And that is happening across the board. So there was a recent survey done by CNET, and they found that more than 78% of Americans are stressed about paying their energy bills. And this is really hitting. 32% of Americans are turning to financing options to get by, to be able to pay those energy bills. And 24% of Americans are cutting back on purchases to be able to pay their energy bills. Now, again, I applaud those who are being fiscally responsible and cutting back on non-essential purchases to be able to pay for essential things like energy to keep the lights on. But nearly 80% of Americans feeling stressed about energy and keeping the lights on is a concern. Then let's talk about car. I don't own a car as a New Yorker. I don't plan to get a car, but I do understand that for the vast majority of Americans who are not living in metropolitan areas, a car is an essential. You need a car to get around, to get to work. So I think most of us are aware of the rising cost of both new and used vehicles. But this I found to be very interesting and new information for me. So the cost of car repairs has increased by nearly 20% since last year. 20% in 1 year. And apparently that is the highest increase in any consumer good category. This is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So let's say you own a car and something breaks. You bring it to the auto mechanic, and now that part and the service to repair it costs 20% more than it would have cost you just a year ago. And the reasons why, mainly, labor costs are rising in this area because of a shortage of auto mechanics. Maybe consider getting trained as an auto mechanic because from what I read, there's a shortage of labor in this area. And so the labor costs are rising. And so that gets passed on to the customers who need their cars repaired. Also, we have to, of course, include inflation. The cost to purchase those replacement parts is also rising, and that increase is being passed on to customers. Next, I want to talk about the retiree population because in America, there's this notion that after age 65, you are in a retirement season and you would no longer be working. I personally don't really believe in that. I don't love the idea of work to the bone for, I don't know, what is it, 40 years, 50 years, and then finally retire and get to do what you want to do when you're, older and tired and your body may not be capable of doing all the things you wanted to do when you were younger. So I feel like I'm not really a big proponent of this American idea of 65 being the retirement age, but let's just stick to that. So I found that more seniors over the age of 65 who are technically supposed to be retired and not working and enjoying their leisurely lives, more of them are working now. They're either back to work or they're still working. And I thought it was interesting because my neighbor here, New Jersey, since I'm in New York, New Jersey is the leading state with the highest number of retirement age adults still in the workforce. Okay. So right now it's 33.8% of retirement age adults in New Jersey who are still in the workforce. And that is a significant increase from just 2 years ago. So back in 2022, it was 20% of retirement age workers in New Jersey still working. Now it's 34, close to 34%. So if you do the math, that is a significant increase. Number two, after New Jersey, is the state of Delaware, and they too have seen an increase. So now 27% of retirement age adults are still working in the state of Delaware, compared to what was 19.8% 2 years ago. So you see the rise. Now, again, there might be more to the story. I feel like a lot of times when statistics are thrown out there without a lot of context, things can be misconstrued. I think that in general, we are living longer and we are healthier. And so if you're in retirement age, but you feel you still have the energy and you want to stay mentally sharp and you'd be bored staying home all day, maybe Americans are going back to work or staying in the workforce for those reasons. But I do believe that a large portion of those retirement age Americans are forced to keep working because of financial reasons. Added to that, due to inflation, Social Security benefits are not the same as what they were. Americans who have hit their retirement age and are cashing out on their Social Security, they're receiving payments that might have been perfectly fine 10 years ago. Now they're about 80 cents to the dollar compared to what it would have been. And so their money is not stretching as far. And this is why I think planning and being conservative and living below your means is important, because you never know how things are going to change in the future. There are no guarantees, and you don't want to fret over financial security. And you don't want to be like a Scrooge McDuck and not enjoy the present. It's a delicate balance. But if you make decisions where your future self will thank you for securing some peace of mind and financial security, then I think you're on the right track. Okay, so before I close out the video, I'm going to share my thoughts on what you can do because some of this could feel a little bit hopeless. It can feel very negative and draining, and that is not the purpose of this video. Again, it's all about education, financial literacy, and empowerment. So, if you have the means, and I would imagine many of you have the means to live comfortable lives, especially if you watch my channel on a regular basis because you're looking at, frivolous little luxury goods and consumer goods, and you're watching product reviews and you're buying things once in a while that are not needs but wants. That tells me that you're probably comfortable and hopefully you're not drowning in debt and you're not struggling to put food on the table. So if you do have the means, I say continue to live below your means, considerably below your means. That creates immediate buffer for your future. Now, we all know that there are a lot of expenses that are optional if we're honest with ourselves. So definitely do an audit. I talk about doing life audits, closet audits, finance audits. It's nice to sort of examine your habits because there are the patterns that we're seeing in the US economy at the macro level, but you need to understand your own personal patterns at the micro level. That's very important. So figure out if you need to cut back, and if so, where can you cut back? I'm sure there are many categories, many areas where you can be a little bit more sensible, a little bit more patient about purchasing items that are not immediate necessities. And here's something I have been promoting for a long time in a lot of my personal finance videos. Automate your savings. In fact, automate everything. I automate my credit card payments so that I don't ever miss a bill. I automate my savings. I automate my donations. I automate my investments. Do whatever you can to make it easier for yourself so that everything is on autopilot. And in particular, if you save first and you spend what's left, you've basically paid yourself first. You've prioritized yourself, your future self, and your financial security. And so if you're not saving already or you feel like you don't have enough buffer to save, see where you can cut, and where you do cut, take that money and instead of splurging on something else, take that money and start saving it and automate that where the exact same amount goes out every single month on the same day every month, and it repeats, rinse and repeat, so you don't have to remember. And you don't have to fight with yourself either about how you're going to use the money because it goes out automatically, ideally to a separate account that is high yield savings, so you're getting some interest. Otherwise, you're losing money every single day to inflation. Your dollar won't stretch. So put your money in a high yield savings account as your emergency savings. If you've already done that, then also make sure that you are investing for the long haul because you're not going to make as much money in a savings account as you will if you were to, for example, put your money in the stock market in S&P 500 tracking index funds. I tend to go with Vanguard. I am a fan of Vanguard, but you can go with Fidelity or other groups. This is not meant to be professional finance advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm giving you some tips to start exploring. If you already have enough savings and you have the means and you're feeling a bit comfortable, then you definitely ought to be investing. Now, if you are struggling, truly struggling to make ends meet, perhaps you just got laid off, perhaps you make decent money, but you support several family members or extended family members, and it's really, drying up your funds, or you have a ton of student loan debt or other types of debt that you are trying to climb out of, and that eats up most of your money, or you have 2, 3 jobs and you barely have time or energy to do anything else because you're just trying to keep it together, then I would say, first of all, don't lose hope. Be choiceful about every single dollar because clearly any dollar that you make is hard earned. And so give each dollar a clear job. Is it going to pay off debt? Is it going to savings? Is it going to my future investments? Give it a job. Don't let it just willy-nilly disappear over random unnecessary things. This is where tracking your expenses becomes important. If you have a decent job but it doesn't pay very well, look for another job perhaps, or try to negotiate a pay raise if you have enough rationale or solid case to propose that to your employer. Or join many of those Americans who have side hustles like myself, whether it be YouTube or copy editing or blogging, dog walking, babysitting. It takes additional energy and time to do more work, but you will reap the fruits of your labor eventually. Also, look for ways where you can just be smarter with your purchases. So, if there's an item that you need to buy, but you know you won't need to use it very often, let's say you need a dress because you're going to a wedding and you're going to be a guest and you don't have a fancy dress, can you borrow it? Can you rent it versus buying it and owning it? Is it cheaper to do that? Can you thrift? Buy secondhand? It's also environmentally more friendly to do that. Can you sell some of your existing items that you no longer use and use that money to fund the new item? It's like a one in, one out, which I've talked about in the past. Can you do a swap with friends and family members? I remember years ago when I was a younger mom, our church had a swap where all the moms brought their children's old clothes, shoes, strollers, toys, and laid them all out on our individual tables. And then the moms walked around and basically took whatever item they needed or wanted for their child, while at the same time being able to get rid of the items that they no longer needed to other moms who could use them. Also, in times like this, when it gets a little bit panicky and then the newsreels become a little too sensational and again, doom and gloom, I really don't like that. I stay away from the news unless I'm specifically researching something. I don't just mindlessly watch the news because it is deeply depressing and way too clickbaity and oftentimes incredibly skewed and political. But my point is this: don't make any drastic moves at times like this. Don't panic. Especially any high risk moves. You just want to sit tight. Sometimes doing nothing is the best thing, or take small steps to maneuver, take baby steps, but nothing crazy. Don't do anything that you cannot bear the cost of losing. Also, don't invest in anything you don't understand. Please don't get yourself caught up in get rich quick schemes or scams or hot stock picks. If you don't understand what you're buying into, that is very dangerous. So, if you're interested in making some investments in different areas, research, learn about them, read books. I will actually link some of my favorite personal finance books down below in my description box if you're interested in starting to read some of these. Or listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos. But even with that, you don't want them to be pushing product on you or getting commission off of the advice that they're giving you. Stay away. Also, don't want to watch or listen to people who give you all kinds of financial jargon and try to act like they're smarter than you, but don't actually explain anything useful. And definitely stay away from people who are flaunting their wealth, but it's artificial. Like they may live in a mansion and have 16 sports cars and a collection of 50 Rolexes, but they're actually in debt. You want to learn from people who have been steady and consistent. I know it sounds boring, but a lot of times when it comes to money, boring and steady and repetitive is the way to go to build wealth long term. And finally, if you are abundant, if you are debt free and you have excess and you are saving and you are investing and you have a nice portfolio and you have a nest egg set up for your children if you have children, and you have the ability to indulge in little luxuries here and there, buying things and traveling, then please remember to be generous, not only with your financial resources like donating to charitable organizations, but also with your time. Perhaps you can volunteer, because if you have the luxury of time and comfort, then you have time to volunteer and help others out. You can also volunteer your advice, your expertise. Perhaps there's someone out there who is trying to get into the same line of work that you happen to be in and have been successful in. Because at the end of the day, this is not about becoming the richest person. This is not about having a mountain of gold coins. This is not about hoarding or having pride over money. This is about freedom, peace of mind. This is about empowerment to make choices that are healthy for you and your lifestyle, and about being able to help others in need, because that's what humanity is all about. It's not just about me, myself, and I, right? We all know that deep down. So I do hope this video has been insightful and helpful in some way. If you got anything out of it, please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already and you're interested in this type of content, I do have a playlist called Money and Mindfulness. If you're interested, it is down below. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.